welcome to another episode of the Innovators Den. I'm your host, Danny Silverio.
Steve-O Business, and we got the special Casell, right?
Yes, sir. Nice
What's
to meet
up?
you.
What's up?
Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, who you are, what you do.
So I'm Casell, born and raised Brooklyn, New York. Got into fashion industry through photography, transitioned into film and video, filmmaking, made some films. Ultimately, got to the point where I started to, write about fashion as much as photograph it. And then I launched my magazine, Reverie Page, and then started to basically cover menswear and like sustainability on Forbes.com. So I've been doing those things, and then just been producing an annual print to Page magazine, which is really fun each year. Also, just kind of covering stories in a lot of different places.
Been around the world, actually.
Yeah. But it's been really cool stories and bringing light to some things that may have been forgotten or may have been overlooked. That I think is kind of something we need to like look at as per example or whatever with fashion. And
Can you speak on one of those stories?
I just recently went to Milwaukee to cover Harley-Davidson Homecoming. So something like in the sense of traditional American like subcultures. Harley-Davidson is a heavy biker culture, but tied to that is like biker style, and it's a fashion style, and if you look into it, you'll see that it's really prominent. But for me, it was something that I seen growing up. You see in movies, and you associate it with things, but then you see it on the ground. I'm out in Milwaukee, and it's like, the Hell's Angels ain't out there
Right.
like that. It's a bunch of like, literally like fathers, grandfathers, regular dudes, like mechanics. Everybody got a little colorful history, but and probably ain't gonna be no pushovers either.
Right.
Yeah.
But like just seeing that, and then just seeing the fashion style where these dudes is not worried about fashion, but for in New York we see fashion in a different way, where like military style carried us through the 90s, and we ain't set foot in like Army or Navy.
Right.
Maybe had a brother, cousin or something, but like that wasn't we weren't patriotic in that way. We were more expressive about it, but that's what it was. It was just like that way to express it. So I see that subculture out there. I see the people involved and how it expands like around the globe. Like there's people coming from Japan, South Africa, Malaysia, they coming up from Argentina, like riding, like on the bike,
Yeah, because they're
coming
taking
down
the style, right? Like they're taking the clothing, the leather.
Yeah, and and the thing, about it is like, how far you going on your bike? They coming down from Alaska, Canada, across
On
from,
their
like,
bike?
They on the bike going miles, bro, like thousands of miles. And that's the thing, like that's like part of the culture where it's like, you got to take it up the coast, you got to take it across country. They have like, trips where they go to, the Himalayas or something, and they ride through the Himalayas and shit like that,
Crazy.
It's just a biking culture, and that's, what they call, you get a bike, it's
Right.
like a midlife crisis, but like that's what they do,
Yeah.
But to see it is what to me was kind of one of those things where I'm like, you don't think about it in that way, you just kind of like latch on to like the glossy part of it, and to me like something like that is like, is a learning experience.
And it's an amazing story to tell, right? Because it hasn't been told to the, like, like it hasn't really been told as far as a fashion perspective.
Yeah, so you're speaking kind of on there, like how does that intertwine with streetwear, or how does that biker culture intertwine with fashion in general?
Well, for me, I'm not looking at it like what's trending. I'm looking at like what's the meaning behind a lot of the clothing. Like why, almost like why does it exist? Because we could wear whatever, we could all wear the same thing. Like kind of see it in movies where like everybody's like wearing a uniform, like Star Trek or something like that. For me, when I even said it about like in New York, the 90s is military inspired, boots and cargos and the bucket hats and whatnot. Cause it's like, it was always described even in the music. It's like, there's a war going on outside, no man is safe from. It's like, where do you get that from? It's like that mentality is something behind it. So like, if a brand were to kind of capitalize on that, you know, that would be the essence, you know. You think about somebody like who I interviewed this year was Carl Kanai, and like how he made like, you know, streetwear, the first streetwear brand, if not just fashion coming out of the street, was, you know, like that was popular anyway. Like in that global sense, it's like he kind of identified something where like, all right, they're already doing this with the clothes that they find on the shelves. It's like, let me put a name on it. He didn't have a name for it at first. But like those stories to me are like, all right, that's why we wear certain things. You know what I mean? That's why we gravitate to them. You know, like when it's luxury brands, it's because it's like it presents an aspirational value, you know, and that's what we go for. So, you know, for me, I'm like, all right, what's the stories that, you know, what's that essence behind why we even picked it up? And now it's just everybody's just trying to grab trend. You know what I mean? Good way, bad way, it's here nor there for me, but it's just like, there are brands that live longer than others in fashion and mean a lot more to people. And, you know, it's just kind of like, I want to know why, you know?
Yeah, and that's a great point of view. I mean, like, I know you for just going all over the world, taking pictures of the best, you know, fashion weeks and, you know, taking content from the best influencers out there. And, you know, what really inspired you to start a Page magazine? Because that was very important when I ran into it, you know, so...
Page was a lot of reasons, you know, that came behind Page. You know, like for one, I kind of wanted to have like more influence in fashion because like what I saw happening was like, you know, I was like, I'm not going to do certain things or like try to, you know, make a fashion statement because like that wasn't me, but I did care about it in the same way, you know what I mean? So it was just like, what doors can I get into and have that influence? And part of that was like, I couldn't get into those doors that easy. I didn't have certain credentials, or I didn't know certain people, or, you know, I wasn't from a certain cloth that, you know, everybody else was cut from. So like, you know, I just kind of like saw it like that. You know, you get discouraged a little bit, but not all the way if you kind of smart about it. And to me, it was just like, all right, how do I navigate the space? I was shooting at an apparel company, and they had outsourced my job to China where they were making the clothes. And what I mean by outsource is like, I set up a whole operation for them to do e-com in New York. And it's just more about the, you know, e-com is very specific, and you know, it takes a lot of technical kind of aspects to it. It's just more like there's a price each time you ship the clothes back and forth and, you know, getting the right items there. So they have everything there. So when I left there, I kind of just, you know, I was like, all right, what am I gonna do? I need something to do. So like, I think it was like 2019, I just kind of went to Paris Fashion Week like all year. I was just there and just like you said, like shooting, you know, meeting people, like doing, you know, like interviews. Not only did I would shoot like Fashion Week, I got the opportunity to write about Fashion Week for Fashion Week Online. So I posted those photos, and then I kind of wrote kind of my perspective on it. I related it to, you know, if you grew up in New York, when you go to high school, you got to get dressed, you know what I mean? If you want to, you know, have a good time, you want to have friends, you want to, you know, you want to get that kind of attention. You young, there's nothing else to do, you know. But like for me, I was like, yo, it's like going to Paris Fashion Week felt like high school. It's just you wake up, you know what I mean? You probably was out all night. You wake up, you getting dressed, you rushing over to the first class or your first show rather. Back to a senior project in school that I had done where I came up with like the magazine itself. It was a little more expensive, but like I was like, all right, let me tap into that and let me see if I could like refresh it and rebuild it and whatnot. And basically that's what I did, and you know, kind of took some time. I ain't rushing to nothing. I took some time to like really assess like what am I going to be talking about? What's the essence about what I'm doing? And, you know, sustainability came into mind, you know, some of the things that I care about, you know, I might not be so vocal about it. But those things affect me in a way, like I feel for them, you know, and I'm more concerned even like in the wasteful factor of it, where even going back to high school and growing up in New York, it was something to get like even like a pair of sneakers for the first day of school, you know, but like for me, I didn't always have the opportunity. But like I would see other people, they would, but I'm like, damn, don't be, you got the new Jordans, but you kind of like crushing them up. And, I know you're going to have the new ones next week, but like, damn, like,
don't mess them up.
Yeah.
And then, I see people go out their way and spend all their money on like luxury items. And then like, same thing. It was just like, you're not taking care of them, or you breaking bank almost, you know what I mean? Those things to me were like, that's not sustainable. That's going to keep you, in this place where you don't need to be because of fashion. So, economically anyway. And yeah, those things came to mind. I'm like, yeah, those to me, I'm like, that's all sustainability. Why is it always just like Barefoot Contessa or Tree Hugger vibes? Everybody got to be vegan kind of, something like that. And it's like, nah, I don't think that, it's going to.
It's not just that, right?
Yeah, there's many different
factors.
Yeah.
That play.
That's what kind of landed, how I landed on Page, where I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk about all these things that I think attribute to sustainability and circular, lifestyle or business or practice or whatever. You know what I mean? Those are the things that brought Page to life. And I was like, all right, now I got a point of view. Let me run with it. And the other things that brought Page was like, all right, I'm going to have this perspective that more so like, if you understand what sustainability is, you can relate more so here because it has that vibe of like, it's a little more freeing and it's not restrictive to like, I got to do these exact things, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, confident that there are more people, like that kind of just still want to live in the world we live in.
Make it better.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Make it better.
Like, we've
Why
already
not?
created, that's my thing. It's like, we've already created this world. It's like, there's no running from it. You know what I mean?
Right.
We got technology, we making things. It's like, it's things to do that we don't necessarily, you know what I mean? Like farming, we ain't farming all day. Like, we don't got to hunt or, gather and shit like that.
But I think
you feel
it's cool as a new norm that we as a community, like the millennials, right, or the younger crowd like us, like we need to make it cool to be sustainable and to think, positive in that manner because people forget about that. So, for me, your magazine was a PowerPoint for me because with my brand that I was focused on sustainability, I thought nobody was going to care about what I was talking about, right? And then when I saw your magazine, I was just like, oh, well, look, he got the point of view that I'm trying to push that message and you were doing it. And that led me to see that, while you was doing the photo shoots and the Page, it led you to be on a panel at the United Nations, right? To talk about sustainability. So how was your experience with that?
Yeah, like the UN panel was really cool. It was with Fashion Impact Fund, and they set up a panel for the Sustainable Development Goal number 12, which is about like consumerism and like supply chains, And yeah, they had me host it, which was really kind of, it was.
Awesome.
I was like, y'all want me to host it? I was like, okay. I was fine with it. I always take on a challenge. But in the same time, I was like, wow, I'm like hosting this with a bunch of, women that like really like get into the nitty gritty of it. And for me, just kind of being an observer, somebody just digesting information so that I can like pass it on to like for other people to understand. I was like, all right, this is my opportunity to really like kind of preface this as a platform where Page is kind of like, this is the discussions we intend to have. And for me, like it just kind of happened this way too. It's not like a setup.
It wasn't planned.
Yeah, like from the universe or whatever. It was just like the panel before, the woman was like, I haven't bought a single piece of clothing or whatever in an entire year. I was like, I'm sweating. I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's crazy.
Like, I can't do that.
You know what I'm saying? So like when I went on the panel and I'm introducing and whatnot, I'm like, so the panel before, the woman said she didn't buy anything for a year, and I'm like, I couldn't. I don't think it's possible for me to do that, especially in the world we live in. And I'm like, for my group and generation, I'm like, we're not
programmed like that.
Yeah, we're not gonna sit here and not buy anything as they keep marketing stuff to us, And for me, I kind of launched into what was my topic of conversation in the last issue we put out, issue number 3. Is capitalism, should it be a part of the sustainability conversation? And that's where I started. It was a woman Ngozi from Consumer Collective, a woman named Tracy from Renewal Cell, and then Geneva I believe. Can't quite remember the brand, but
Right.
yeah. And then, you know, I just kind of like started there, and like for me, I was like, that's the opportunity to do that. And you know, UN, it was a real tight crowd too. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody from around the world was there, you know, as far as being a voice or some sort of influence in the sustainable conversation in fashion. So
That's awesome. That makes
or
a difference.
outside too, fashion.
Yeah.
Do you actually, can we see your photography work in your magazine as well, or is that?
Yeah, yeah. You could see my photography work in the magazines. Essentially, like I've been from the first issue to the third issue, and even going into the fourth issue which we're working on. It's become kind of like, you know, I kind of fell back in that and like doing the many things. But every now and then, yeah, I do like to, you know, get it in there and like do something specific or special where like, all right, let me just kind of put that touch on it. Or like could kind of fulfill that where it's like, you know, as a photographer coming up, you want to be on the cover of, you know, Vogue, GQ,
Right. Editorial,
so
right?
editorial. You want to have the spreads and whatnot. And even in getting into photography, like, you know, you see you coming up in, I guess, my generation, you see like it's mostly photographers that aren't, you know, black or brown as much, and you kind of like, all right,
I could do that.
I could do that, but like I see what y'all going for, and that's really like how pages
More
just
like-
exist in, is because it's just like, you know, we do 3 different covers per issue. One cover is somebody prominent in fashion. So that last year that was Iris Van Herpen, couture designer, and then we did Julia Lang for one cover, who is just like kind of image consultant and, you know, kind of a marketing kind of guru for like, you know, industry folk and whatnot. She has a jewelry brand, which is pretty cool. They just dropped their first like fashion collection as well, capsule. And then the third issue is usually like a fashion model, and, you know, not in the typical sense of somebody very unique looking, you know, kind of representation wise, but like traditional like fashion model, like just looks cool, looks dope, and make the, you know, effortless, like just fly. And like to me, I'm like, yeah, that's the essence of like even why we have magazines on the tables, like the cover, like, you know, there's no words on the cover, so it's just like that cover is just telling you a story, and like if you want to know what's going on, you got to
open it.
Exactly.
But I think your story is more important because you're coming from the ground. Like you're really outside documenting this. And for
I was
us,
born rich. What you mean?
you could be born rich, but you still have to start somewhere, right? If you're
Yeah.
gonna be a creative, your parents could be billionaires, but you still got to tell your point of views, telling
Yeah.
your story, right? So regardless, you know, you come out and tell your story in your way. I think that's what culture should be, right? Like, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be culture vultures, right?
I mean, like, I pride myself on that. Like, you know, that's why I kind of said that, because it's like when you come from a different perspective, and especially coming from New York, our storytellers live mostly in music, and, you know, we got a lot of people out of New York that do great things. Like, I also work for like Steve Stout right now at his agency, Translation. And like he's done great things in music, and he's not like a rapper or anything. He's done great things in business, and, you know, it's just like you know, somebody like, you know, really setting the tone. But like, there's no one really like talking about fashion. We do it well, you know. You can say, name people like A$AP Rocky if you like that style. You got Fabulous over here if you like that style. And if you're a grown man, I think, you know, there's other people you can look at that are, you know, from other generations of rap, and like, there's nobody to really like talk about it and analyze it and break it down from that perspective. And you know, to tell you why, like, when Fabulous steps out, why he be, you know, gotta go hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, or why when somebody's dressing like this, like, what is it, you know, kind of reference and whatnot. Those things to me are the nuances that make it what it is. Like, make it why we like it. You know what I mean? Why it's like, yo, you know, we go crazy when we see somebody rocking something or whatever.
What do you feel like someone starting out from the ground up, like, what are some tips that you could give them? Like, how to get into the photography, how to start your magazine, and so forth.
Tips I can give them, I would say just mostly like build a system. And when you build a system, it's more like you building like organization and discipline. I think that would take you further on the baseline, because like then the creativity just kind of, you know, comes in through your own like discovery. And yeah, like if you build a system, you can kind of like, you know, alleviate a lot of the stresses you have around, you know, your work and whatnot.
That goes for everything. I feel like if you don't have a system, you kind of
Yeah, you know, like that's the ease of the process. And like, I say, you know, like just kind of stay curious, you know, stay curious. And then also, yeah, I guess too, you got to find like a creative style,
Right.
you know, something that like you can do a lot without getting bored, and it shows that you're not getting bored.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of it is. That's why I just kind of like set it up where it's like a system. Because, you know, when you think about, you know, like how people kind of want immediate gratification and like being photographers, it's like, or being something creative, it's like, yo, you're gonna be doing this for years to come. You know what I mean? So like,
You're not hot yet. You're not hot yet.
Yeah, like the passion gonna be there, but like you gotta know how to navigate
Yeah,
the
you gotta learn the
space.
system. And be,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, like I would say those things kind of is the
Well-
best advice I can.
Well, you being creative, creating your magazine, going around the world led you to now write for Forbes, right? Now you.
Yeah, no, Forbes is dope because it was something where, you know, I came in through this like an application, but like the application fell through and then they hit me back up. And I was like, all right, you know, what was the problem before? And they mentioned something about like the names and, you know, what they were looking for. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'm down to, you know, bring this to the arts and leisure section, which is what they were opening up on their site. And essentially, like, you know, it's kind of even that being a part of Forbes was something that, you know, has kind of granted me a lot of opportunities to cover a lot more and get deeper into like fashion, which is pretty cool, you know, and not just like, you know, just like be there, but like actually talk about it and be in the scene and the eyes and the ears in a way like too, where I go back to, you know, like Page 6 magazine, which is like a fashion column, or like if you think like going way back, Glenn O'Brien, he was with GQ, and like him being in like the clubs in the 80s and like, you know, writing about fashion from that perspective and, you know, and being, you know, going on set or, you know, going to the places where fashion was happening and then talking about it, you know.
Yeah.
Those are the things like what I feel like I'm trying to channel when I'm writing for Forbes, you know.
And that's awesome because I'd rather have your point of view, right, than just any random person who's not really outside and not taking the content. They're just writing it from an office, and you're really outside. You're really on these planes, traveling in these countries, and yeah, your point of view means a lot, you know, to all of us, especially if they don't know, right? Now they know. Yeah, now y'all know.
Yeah, no, listen, I went to Cuba and I went to like that Hemingway hotel, everybody be talking, the pink one. Mm-hmm. I saw it and I was like, oh, this is dope. Like this dude was writing, he was living here and chilling and whatever rumors they said, I was like, this is cool. But I'm like, I thought about it and that's what kind of influenced the writing part. And I saw that impact where it's just like, all right, somebody tells you years ago, somebody was like, yo, you should blog or vlog about your experiences. But I'm like, that's not my thing. I don't really like to do that. That seems very like like, you know,
Yeah,
like
narcissist type of shit.
yeah, you know what I mean? And I don't want to
It's more like self-focused, like you're focused.
Right.
I mean, listen, hey.
Limelight on it. You know what I'm saying? I get it.
But yeah, it's like, you know, like it didn't sit right with me in that way where it's just like, nah, that's like, you know, it's just like one of those things where I want to be able to give back. Like I want to drop some knowledge if I could. And like when somebody told me that some years ago, they're like, you could do this or that. And I was like, yeah, I could, but it's like, what feels right? You know, like I don't have like a foundational piece to it, you know? And then when I found that through, you know, the sustainable fashion and talking about, you know, my perspective on fashion, which I felt more people could relate to than not.
Right.
That's where it got into like, you know, something of a kind of discourse where I could get down to those, you know, those nitty gritties or say those things, and like certain people would get them and just other people would just be put on like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? I even like this is probably like a reach maybe, but I don't consider it a reach because I'm like, this is what I kind of do this for. Like I wrote about Heron Preston's brand. He dropped a collection and just kind of went into like his idea of like his workwear style and how he implements it into his brand. And, you know, even speaking with him, I just identified it as like, yo, he's saying his design is like a language and whatnot. Like and I titled it that way, like this is his design, like his language in fashion. And then what he speaks through, the lens he speaks through or sees through, and the filter he speaks through. And then like maybe a week later or less, Kanye was on like CNN or something, and he said like similar. He was like, yeah, no, I don't call it design anymore, I call it a language. And I was like, that's your friend. And I was like, yo, I was telling people, I was like, yo, he took that from me. Like he took it right from I'm the only one out. It's the only one. There's the only one. And he's like, he had to take that from me. He had to see it. He saw it because it's like there's no other, you know what I mean? I wrote things about Kim Jones at Dior, and I didn't, you know, reach. I just wrote something in opinion, you know what I mean? And they're like, hey, could you take that down? Like Dior emailing me, like, can you take that down? I'm like, all right, so y'all seeing it. And that's the point. I was like, y'all seeing it. I want y'all to see it. I want y'all to hear me, and you know, I want y'all to acknowledge my perspective because it's perspective.
That same perspective.
Yeah, a lot of people have that same perspective, and that's the perspective y'all using when y'all was making tight hoodies in '08. Now y'all got drop shoulder, you know, boxy hoodies that's oversized and all that, like baggy clothes like we was wearing then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, all right, y'all see it, y'all hear it. You know, now y'all hear it, but y'all was seeing it before. And, you know, even with Paige, it's like I kind of don't want to let, you know, too much people capitalize on the voice of it too. So it's like as long as it can exist, and like writing for Forbes, it's like have some sort of ownership over the voice of it, and it's not just like
controlled.
You know what I mean, some trending kind of thing. It's like, no, like y'all got Vogue, y'all got GQ, House Body over there. I see what y'all doing over there, Hypebeast, Complex. I've seen you for years. You know what I mean? Like y'all do y'all thing. I'm gonna just be over here trying to, you know, build this out and craft this voice, because we hear y'all over there and we respected it for years. You know what I'm saying? Those are the things I came up on.
But we need our own voice now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And yo, like I even saw it when I went to like you know, Hypebeast, and I'm not knocking them. I'm like, yeah, hire your boys, like your uncles, your cousins, like put them on if they nice at it and they can help you out. Like, but I'm like, we always saying the same. I was like, yeah. Let them do their thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm like, all right, you know, and even working with Paige, it's like, I don't even be looking at it like that. Because if you look at the featured contributors page inside the magazine, it be not too many people that look like me. I tell you that much. And if anything, it's quite opposite, you know? Yep. And it's like, I'm just opening, like I said, opening the platform up so people could get on and put their ideas out there that may not go on there. Like, you know, working with other writers, it may not fit for their publications that they write for, but they're like, yo, we see you doing this. I want to have this opinion out there. You know what I mean? And they could go somewhere else too. There's plenty of other outlets I guess you could sign up to, but you know, it's for me.
But it's your voice.
Yeah.
It's your vision and it's your ideas that you're putting out, and we appreciate it, you know?
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to mention to the fans that they don't know that they should know?
You know, when building the magazine, I think, I mean, the business model is kind of one of the things too, like that really speak to like how we want to operate, where we don't have inventory. We do pre-order for the magazine, and we do like, made to order per issue. So that's like one of the things where like we really looking for people that want to, you know, have this conversation or kind of want to, you know, the magazine is beautiful. Like as far as a physical copy,
that's also sustainable too.
Yeah, you know, the printer we use is sustainable out of the West Coast. You know, recycled paper, water-based inks, and things like that. And yeah, like, you know, everything made to order. We have the link, you know, on our socials, on our website, and things like that to order it.
Tell us where people can find you and find Paige and everything.
Yeah, so Paige, Reverie Page, that's REVERIE PAGE. You can find that at Reverie page on Twitter, Instagram. That same REVERIEPAGE
Yeah.
You know, and that'll take you to where everything is at. My personal is Casell Inc. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you know, all the socials. That's CASSELLINC. And yeah, like everything will link back. Like if you find one, you're gonna find the other. Like everything links back. There's, you know, I got it all hooked up together, so it's all speaking to one another. So you can't really get too lost. But I try to make it easy. I work on some, you know, other kind of things to make the brand get out there, the magazine easier to obtain, you know, some subscriptions and whatnot. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's all a process right now, and you know, kind of on the side of working independently, but I got help from people, you know, here and there, and you know, even in putting the magazine together, you'll kind of see that as those issues come out. Yeah.
It's a process. Well, we appreciate you coming on, sharing your story and what you got going on. I think it's very inspiring, and it's a message to the youth as far as sustainability and being conscious about it. You know what I mean? Being aware. You know. So thank you for
having to have your own voice, like that's.
Yeah, having your own voice is crucial. Like that's why we created the Innovators. Then we want to create our own segment, our own voice to communicate, bring on people like you to be able to tell your stories, because nobody's telling our stories, right? So let's do it ourselves.
Yeah, I think one more thing too, like it's about telling the stories, but like also telling the stories that encourage like the positive movement. That's why I think you know, I got into sustainability, and I was interviewing Virgil Abloh, and we both kind of concluded where it's like, yo, we kind of want to make sustainability cool in the same sense that anything else is cool, where, you know, like a sustainable community, a sustainable business, you know, your economy is sustainable. Like those things factor into, you know, all of our living. And, you know, when we telling our stories, you know, I kind of want to be mindful of like, hopefully we telling stories that kind of empower and encourage people to do like more positive things. And that's why I'm like, with my magazine, it's like I'm a sneakerhead, but I do care about like the planet, you know?
Right.
And why can't we meet somewhere, you know, where we can both, like I said, we created this world, like let's just make it better.
Let's make it better. Let's make it cool to make it better.
Yeah, facts.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap. We got Innovators Den. Make sure to follow us at the Innovators Den. Subscribe.
Alert button.
Hit the alert button.